Hi, it's Rich from Planet PE here again. We're going to have a quick look at exam technique. Now, you might have had things in reports, or you might have even had students where you think they know all the answers, but their exam technique is something that we might be questioning. So, obviously, we're Planet PE, we're a GCSE app, and it's going to show you how the things that we do, such as the glossary terms or the quizzes or the podcasts, might help you to try and develop your exam technique, but also try and look at the exam itself. So we'll just have a quick look at things that have come up in exams before. So if we have a look at what the examiners say that successful and less successful students look like, you might get an idea of why we try and think that our app is going to be useful for all students to use, but also maybe in lesson time, how you might try and develop the use of key definitions. So they've looked at less successful candidates of not having the same breadth of knowledge to the specification topics. Now that typically indicates that we're using the wrong terms or we're using layman's language rather than being really specific in the things that we're talking about. They experience difficulty when trying to give specific examples. Now that might just be that they don't have the knowledge or they can't articulate what they're trying to say. The essay responses were usually difficult to interpret due to the standard written communication. Now we've got a previous video identifying success or not in the extended questions, so you might want to try and check that one out. That's on our channel. And if we look at the exam itself, looking for clues in the exam, the examiners aren't trying to trip us up. But I often feel that the students that I've taught in the past maybe try and be a little bit too clever and they don't actually give the obvious example. I've had one student who once put that shark bites would be less painful if we wore a wetsuit on a different syllabus. So it's really important that we're not trying to be too clever with our answers and that we're actually answering what's in front of us. And simple things like if the exam asks for 2 examples, then really make it clear to the examiner there's 2 separate ones and don't overlap or repeat them. And also use the bullet points that are in the questions to try and guide you and your responses. So I just want to look at technique. So if we look at these different command words, okay, now this is something that I think people do really well at A-level, but at GCSE they tend to struggle a little bit with. So if we look at the different things that you might be asked. So the first one is that you might be asked to identify something. Now that's saying just state it. So I might be holding my phone up, and to identify my phone, it is my mobile phone. It's just real simple, or as simple as you can get. You're just saying what it is. Now, a slightly more difficult skill is describing something. It's saying how or saying what's occurring. And the final one is explaining. Now, if you're going to explain something, you're trying to justify it, and to do that you'll say because. So there's a couple of different ways that you can show that, and it's usually about the type of language or the words that you're going to use in response to these command words. So if it's identify, don't waste too much time, just say what it is. If you've got to be descriptive, try and say what's going on, or if you're explaining it, say, well, this is happening because this is occurring. So you just look at how you're approaching these command words, and you'll probably get a mark or 2 extra. Now in the exam, each mark is worth 0.5%. So for every 2 marks, that's 1% of your GCSE in total, not just for that exam. So be really careful not to drop any silly marks. So if we have a look at this, so we're saying here about being clear and to the point. So this asks you to classify or identify one of these 3 benefits. Now I've seen people write forever and ever and ever in here because they've not looked at that command word or that buzzword. In here we're being asked to describe, so therefore we've got to give a little bit more and talk about how or what's going on. Now, definitions are really key about not talking about the wrong things or getting confused what people are talking about. And here's an exam response that we've had in the past. So this one says that there's a picture, so it says figure 3 will have different optimum weight compared with performers of other athletic activities such as sprinting and shot put. State 2 factors, so stating is identifying, state 2 factors that will cause optimum weight to vary between individuals competing in the same event. Now if you look at this, they talked about the position, It's not really going to change the optimal weight in there. And they're talking about age in there. Okay, now, when they're saying age, they've said if somebody in a football team is 17, they might be smaller than somebody who's 25. Now that's suggesting that people who are 25 are always going to be larger than people who are 17, which clearly isn't the case. So what the exam report said in this one is that age was a popular incorrect response. You know, what they meant was height. You know, they were talking about maybe people being taller or smaller. They've got to say that, but the fact they've talked here and said age means that it's incorrect, because all they had to do is state. They could have just put height. They could have put age. Well, age would have been incorrect, but they could have just put height and it would have been correct. So it's really important that we're knowing our definitions and also looking at the responses or the command words that we're needing to talk about. So these key terms are really what Planet PE tries to push towards the students. So it means that we can, say optimum weight and straight away hopefully know exactly what they are, because we have a glossary of terms, glossary quiz, as well as some smaller tests along the way. So if we just continue, just very briefly, looking at why definitions are really important, you can see it in this next one. So here it's just asking kind of what competition is, and people are here saying if you do regular competitive events to stimulate competition, again, it's not defining them. So think of it like an old spelling test that you would have done in primary school. Learning it almost word for word as far as the definitions, it will make you much more successful. So here someone said that cooperation, you could learn coordination. Well, actually, it says cooperation, so people aren't necessarily reading the questions correctly. This is a genuine response from a GCSE test. So, it's really important that people learn the terms, but also read the questions. So, learning the definitions are really, really key. So that's pretty much it for this video. So if you have a look at our app on iTunes or on Android, and also check us out on Twitter at planet_PE. Again, if you want to comment below or subscribe to the video, that'd be great to hear from you.